Hello YouTube and Patreon, this is Nathan P. Butler, and this is our project update for the month of October 2022. Hopefully this will be a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient than what we've seen with some of these previous ones. There's not a lot of new information to provide this time around, just sort of a recap of what's going on and a reminder of what's going on with the Patreon. And in terms of that big chunk that has taken up the back half of many of these in recent months. You may recall that in the last episode I noted that the whole what are you watching, what are you whatever-ing stuff is now gone because it wasn't spurring the kind of discussion that I was hoping that it would when those were added to the mix here. So hopefully this will be a little faster than usual, but we'll see. I always tend to say that. It has been a busy month. We have finally replaced my wife's car. She had a car get totaled recently, so now she does have a new car, so that's all pretty much worked out. Doesn't seem like there's any major health effects or anything like that from anything. Work proceeds apace. I just turned 43 the other day. But work is proceeding. That's pretty much where most of my time is going right now. In fact, this weekend, aside from recording right now, my one opportunity to record pretty much all of today otherwise, work stuff on a Saturday. Pretty much all of tomorrow, work stuff on a Sunday, because there's just not enough time in the day to get everything done that I need to get done during the week, at least not at this point of the semester where, among other things, we're doing like evaluations on teachers and stuff like that. And as a lead, I'm pulling samples of things to kind of see where they stand. Are they following the policies? And how can I help support teachers more and that sort of thing, which is good. I like that we've got that process in place, but it's a little time consuming. So it just means that right now, not a lot of outside stuff being done. It's tending to be stuff where it's basically work-related, kid-related, home-related, and every great once in a while getting a chance to do something like this. I will say one thing, though, before we even get to the Patreon, keep an eye out. I recently had the opportunity to be on a podcast for the first time in a while. Actually, I recorded, it was basically the night before my birthday, and by the time we finished at midnight my time, it had become my birthday. So it's kind of a cool thing to be able to do that around my birthday because, just was nice because it was a chance to talk about home video and talk about the book, A Saga on Home Video, 2nd edition, which of course is on Amazon right now, all on a podcast that I had never been on before. I was invited in by Josh to be a part of the Trash Compactor Star Wars podcast. That is Trash Com Pod, TrashCompod.com. The episode is not up yet. My guess is it may even be up by the time I get this edited and uploaded because it looks like they release about weekly, give or take. And that was back on the night of the 16th when we recorded it. So expect to see that sometime soon. Of course, I will note that in the next of these project updates once it is actually out. But keep an eye on trashcompod.com for a cool little interview discussion that we did looking at basically Star Wars home video, kind of broadly, a little bit about the book specifically. I always enjoy getting a chance to do that. I don't get a chance to do that very often because of just how time squeezed I am. But after my wife was out of town for most of a day, when she came back, she's like, Tag, you're it. You get to do something for yourself. So as she was watching our son, I was able to record pretty late at night so we could actually get a chance to do that right before my birthday. So that was actually pretty cool. So keep an eye out for that. The normal stuff we would normally be talking about here are Patreon and YouTube and anything related to writing stuff. I will say that anything related to writing stuff, there'll be one thing to note, but not a whole lot here. So let's start with Patreon. Let me thank those of you who are backers of my Patreon. That is patreon.com/NathanPButler. And we do have some new faces joining the mix, probably because I did announce last time what the plans are for the Patreon going forward. I will very briefly recap that here in just a moment. So we start out with the Travelers Through the Butlerverse. These are the folks who are at that $1 tier. They get thanked in videos like these, and if there is ever another edition of A Saga on Home Video, or perhaps like a supplemental book to go along with the previously existing 3, then they would get thanked in the Patreon credits in that as well. So these folks include David Bittner, John Sullivan, Kai Jacoby, Story Mode, Travis Cook, Jeremy Goss, Ben Abrams, Jacob Kapoor, Tony Jenkins, Kevin Kriener, and Austin Pierce. Then we have the Denizens of the Butlerverse, that's that $5 tier, who get what the other tier got, but also get access to those audio commentaries. We'll talk more about those in just a moment when it comes to what is coming and what has been released in the last month. Now, this is the group that includes the most new folks here. So we start out with Thomas Navin, Zach Whitbeck, Charles Rowe, Alexander Santos, Jeff Rabjohns, Matt DeRocher, Walker Langstrat, Kyle Pellegrini, Joey Zitzman, Stephen Malicia, Robert Medina, Jeremiah Mustard, and Jana Keller. That was the $5 tier. Next up is the $10 tier. That's Nobility of the Butlerverse, the folks who get what everybody else gets and gets access to that exclusive Q&A video every single month. This group pretty much stable for the most part right now. It includes Connor Steyerman, Matthew Hardesty, Ennis, Big Mac Davis, Jonathan Confer, Sam Howard, Andrew Bettis, and Benjamin Handelman. Benjamin Handelman, of course, has been with us since the beginning of the Patreon, and we did just pass the 5th anniversary of the Patreon on my birthday, because I launched it back on October 17 of 2017. So here we are, 2022, just past that point, 5 years into the Patreon. It will not last 6. More on that in just a moment. As to what has been released through the Patreon since the last of these updates, it's pretty much what you would expect. It's a couple new commentaries on the 1st and the 15th of the month, plus the exclusive Q&A video. The exclusive Q&A video was number 58 of that series, released on October 8 to members of that tier. Commentary-wise, back on October 1st, we had the commentary for the Clone Wars episode Sacrifice, which ended Season 6, and then on October 15, we finally started Season 7 commentaries. Again, we're doing these in chronological order, not airing order, with Gone with a Trace, the beginning of the Ahsoka's Walkabout arc, the 5th released episode in Season 7, but the 1st chronologically in Season 7. As to what is coming up through the Patreon, we'll continue with the Clone Wars commentaries here. So on November 1st, we have the commentary for Deal No Deal. On November 15th, Dangerous Debt. December 1st, Together Again. That ends the Ahsoka's Walkabout arc. December 15th, The Bad Batch. That is the episode, not the series. January 1st, A Distant Echo. January 15th, On the Wings of Kiridax. And February 1st, finishing out that arc, Unfinished Business. Then finally, starting in February, in the middle of February, we get the final arc of the Clone Wars. Kind of an emotional roller coaster of watching that again. We have February 15, the commentary for Old Friends Not Forgotten. March 1st, The Phantom Apprentice. March 15, Shattered. And April 1st, the end of the Clone Wars commentaries with Victory and Death. And yes, that will be the end of the Clone Wars commentaries. I will not be doing an end cap audio thing for that. I may do a looking back kind of recap video maybe that also helps point people to those commentaries perhaps, but I have not decided that for certain yet. And of course, each of those months will also have an exclusive Q&A video for the nobility of the Butlerverse as well. My plan is, hopefully, around mid-November or so, but time is getting tight here, to start releasing commentaries as well for Season 1 or Series 1, whatever you want to call it, Volume 1 of Star Wars Visions as promised. I'm still in the process of taking notes for those. Unfortunately, the very first one that I need to record is the one that needs the most notes, because that first episode of Visions has basically a prequel comic and a sequel novel, both of which need to be somehow addressed within the context of that commentary. So whereas the other ones will be pretty quick to record once I get some notes, that one takes quite a bit more notes and will be a little bit longer of a commentary. So I've got to get those ready to go sometime soon. My hope is, though, that I can get them done early enough that basically I can have them released 2 per month on the alternating weeks with the Clone Wars commentaries once I have them ready. But I think that means I would have to start releasing by like mid-November. So maybe, maybe not, we'll see. Just kind of depends on time-wise. But I know I'm going to be doing them. It's just a question of when they get released. No decision yet, and certainly no promises on Tales of the Jedi. I don't know how long those episodes are actually going to be, and whether or not there's any point in doing commentaries for them as well, when I'm already struggling to try to get the time to do the ones for Visions that I promised were coming. As for the Patreon, though, remember, I announced this last time in detail. It will be ending around the beginning of June 2023. The commentaries will run through April 1st for Clone Wars, right? Once those are done, there's nothing new that's going to be provided unless I'm just running behind on the commentaries for Visions or something. There's nothing new that should be released as commentaries for the Denizens and Nobility after April 1st of next year. Then as far as the exclusive Q&As for the Nobility of the Butlerverse, they'll be able to continue asking questions through April of next year. The last of the Q&A videos will be released in early May of next year, and then that is it for those. And the intent would be that once May is over, and it always bills for the previous month, essentially. Once May is over, the beginning of June, it will process the payments for everybody who is a supporter back in May. As soon as that is done, I will shut it off. So I can't tell you the exact date, but as soon as those payments are processed, it will be shut down. So if you want access to the commentaries, or to look back at the old Q&A videos, but I imagine the commentaries are probably the biggest draw, because it'll be all of Clone Wars by April, plus all of Forces of Destiny, plus a season of Visions. Get in on it now, because if you don't, they will no longer be accessible after early June of next year. So you've got a little while to get there. But yeah, all the episodes for Clone Wars are all recorded, edited, done, ready to go. I just need to get my notes done for Visions to start knocking those out. As far as YouTube, where most of my stuff comes out right now, not a super busy month, but actually it turns out more stuff done than I realized. I thought this was a pretty barren month. I got a few things out since the last update. I just kind of, in all the hubbub of work, just kind of had it fade from my memory, I suppose. So the last of these project updates was released on September 23rd. Also on September 23rd, I finally released my long-hoped-for, long-anticipated video that did a content breakdown of everything for the board game Hand of Fate Ordeals. I know that it's not probably a major draw for most folks on this channel who watch for like Star Wars-related content, but I do some board game content, and that is one that is one of my favorite games that really doesn't get a lot of attention, and when it does get attention, there's usually confusion about the different editions of it and what you can get. So I did a full-blown breakdown of that. Then let's see, and when I say full-blown, we're talking like almost 2 hours of a breakdown of that game and its content. Then we had the first of a new series of videos for the channel, which is basically just ranking Star Wars stuff. Like top whatevers, not home video related stuff, which would go under the top whatever videos from the Star Wars home video library, but just generalized Star Wars stuff. And I started with the big one that most people would ask about pretty constantly, which was to rank the live action theatrical Star Wars films. Actually ranking them 11 down to 1. So that is up there. That went up on September 25th. Also on September 25th, we had 2 other videos. I did a lot of editing at that point. We had mini Q&A number 18, and we had from the Star Wars Home Video Library's 10th, I believe it was, 10th Q&A video. So 2 different Q&A videos. If you are interested in those, typically from the Star Wars Home Video Library ones are focused on the home video stuff. The mini Q&A is anything else. I will say that I am very likely about, if I have time today, to record the next in both of those. So if you're going to ask any questions for it, wait until you see mini Q&A 19 or from the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&A number 11 to put your questions in the comments, because if you try to put them now into the comments for mini Q&A 18 or from the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&A 10, chances are I've already recorded and I won't be able to use your questions. But then that was basically it as far as YouTube goes. I did get an episode of From the Star Wars Home Video Library recorded about these 4 things here, which are store screeners for some items from the UK. It's recorded. I just have not had any time to actually edit to get the things out since I recorded. So whether it's right before or right after this video is edited and uploaded, expect to see From the Star Wars Home Video Library cover some in-store UK screeners. Again, it is recorded, not edited or released yet. Book-wise, speaking of releases, you may recall that back, probably about a decade ago now, I had the opportunity to write for the Wars universe. I had written for Star Wars in the pages of Star Wars Tales and assisted on the Atlas and stuff like that. But Wars was a franchise from Decipher that spun out of a card game, which also had a companion RPG from Mongoose Publishing. The card game of Wars was a 5-faction type of situation, 3 human, 2 alien that came along a little bit later, but it was a storyline based on a game that was basically what Decipher did when they lost the license to the Star Wars CCG and retooled it into a new science fiction universe of their own, which was launched with things like Fiction by Michael Stackpole and others. I had the opportunity to come in and write for that about a decade ago under a different publisher to basically do 2 novels or novellas from the perspective of the Earthers, the Earth faction. We had Healers and Hunters and On Red Soil. They were released back then as ebooks and collected into a couple of trade paperbacks where the first novella from each of the 3 human factions were all combined into one book, and then the second novella from each of the 3 human factions were combined into a second book. The third set, to which I did not contribute, did not initially get released. Archbeetle Press now has the license for the Wars stuff and is reprinting older stuff. So the first book that includes my Healers and Hunters along with the first volumes for the Gonjin or Mars and Mavericks factions. That one came out recently again in ebook and physical form. That is now under the name War Song, all is one word rather than just War, so it's easier to search for. War Song Preludes, that came out recently, and on October 27th, we should be seeing the ebook and physical release of a reprint of the second volume, which includes my On Red Soil novella, along with novellas for the other 2 factions, which is entitled Stretti. War Song Stretti, S-T-R-E-T-T-I. That will be released through Arc Beetle Press later this month. Pre-orders are up for ebook versions, not the physical versions yet. Physical versions wait for actual release through this particular press group. And yeah, so you should be able to get your hands on that soon if you are looking forward to it. And Arc Beetle Press will be putting out the third volume that wraps up all those stories that were kind of left hanging sometime in the near future as well. But again, I did not contribute to that one. If you already happen to own either of the previous printings of Volume 1 or Volume 2, Preludes or Streti, also bear in mind that there is a little bit of new fiction content, again, not by me, by others, for that universe in these new printings. So there is a little bit of a bonus to picking those up. Kind of like if you had picked up the paperbacks of some Star Wars books back in the day that included an ebook or a previously exclusive ebook now in print form or something. Kind of like that. You know, get a little bit of extra if you're getting the newer version of it. But again, those are from Arc Beetle Press. They are under the name War Song. Preludes is the one that's already out that includes Healers and Hunters. Later this month it is Streti, S-T-R-E-T-T-I, that includes my On Red Soil. If you want to have physical or ebook copies and you don't yet or want a new one of any of my previous War Song / Wars fiction. Beyond that, that is basically it for this month. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here so I get some time to maybe record some Q&A stuff. But I thank you all for your interest. Hopefully this last part of the year is going to treat you well as we're heading for, I guess, almost the holidays by the next time I record one of these already. So stay safe out there. May the Force be with you. And hopefully you'll continue to enjoy stuff here on the channel and on the Patreon as I churn it out as time permits here. Thanks. Have a good month.